Today, we are going to talk about the role that roots play for the plant. And this is part of a larger series where we'll talk about the 5 major parts of a plant and what they do or how they function in order to make the plant successful or grow. Now, looking at a root, the first thing you're going to want to find out is how it functions. What is its purpose? Why does it exist? There are 4 primary functions. The first is to absorb water and nutrients. And what that means is that when you think about human body parts and you think about a plant, you can identify the roots as the mouth of the plant. Okay, that is where the water and the nutrients, in order to give that plant energy to grow, comes into the plant. We put food into our mouths. Plants put food in through their roots. They absorb the nutrients in the soil. They do it when the water dissolves the nutrients, and then they absorb it through the root hairs. And it's on the root. When it comes to the roots, they also function as the beginning of a transportation system. It's like the on-ramp to a highway or a train station if you were going to take a train, or going to the airport to fly in an airplane. It's where the transportation of water and nutrients begins and then flows over or moves over towards the stem. A root is also an anchor. It holds that plant in one place, whether that be in the soil or anywhere else that plant has decided to anchor down or hold on to. The root holds it in place, much like an anchor would hold a boat from moving anywhere. And then last, sometimes, but not always, a root functions as a storage for its food, for the plant. And chances are, if that plant stores food in the root, we eat that root. Great examples of this are carrots, beets, radishes, sweet potatoes. These are all examples of plants that store their food or their extra energy that they make in their roots. Now, there are 2 types of root systems out there. And as you look through your garden or you look through your yard, you will easily find these 2 different types of root systems. And the 2 are known as either a taproot or a fibrous root system. So let's look at the taproot system first. When you look at a taproot, I want you to think of a pine tree turned upside down. Or maybe if it's around December, you might recognize it as an upside down Christmas tree. Okay, there is one main root, the primary root, right down the middle. That would be like the trunk of a tree. And then off of that trunk are going to be secondary roots. The secondary roots are going to be the ones that have the root hairs around them and are branching out to the sides. And when it comes to a taproot system, its main function is to grow straight down. It goes down deeper into the soil and dirt than the fibrous root system. A great example of a taproot system is a carrot or a turnip. So just because it's a taproot system doesn't mean we can't eat that root. Okay, chances are we do eat the taproot if it stores food there, like a carrot or a turnip. When it comes to the fibrous system, I like to think of it as the disheveled bedhead look. When you wake up in the morning and you look in the mirror after sleeping all night and maybe even tossing and turning, how your hair's just kind of a mess and everywhere. When it comes to the fibrous system, it's spread out, it's shallow, it's very unorganized. It goes in every direction it can in order to absorb the soil's nutrients and water that's on the top of the surface. So Taproot systems, great for finding nutrients and water deep down in the soil. Fibrous systems, shallow, right on the top of the surface. Okay? And examples of plants that you would have in your garden would be corn and beans. Corn and beans both have very shallow root systems. They don't go very deep in the soil. So you need to then remember that if you're growing corn or beans, they need to be watered regularly. They're looking for surface area water. If it has been a long time since it's rained or since you've watered, these plants are going to be the first to indicate that the soil is dry. Whereas with a taproot system, those are going to go deeper into the soil. And since they go deeper into the soil, it'll take you longer to recognize that your garden is drying up with these plants. Same works for nutrients. If you're adding fertilizer to the ground, the first plants that are going to react to that fertilizer are the plants with a fibrous system. It's going to be the first ones to actually have the fertilizer, the nutrients added to the soil and be able to absorb it, whereas the taproot systems will be the last to recognize it. When we look closer at a root, the root has an epidermis, which we would call a skin, the outermost layer of cells that protect everything inside, and everything inside is known as the cortex. It's inside the epidermis. It's where the traveling of the water and nutrients occurs. It's where the starches are stored. It's everything inside of that skin on a root. Now, when you look even closer at a root, you can see that if you look down at the bottom here, roots have hairs on them, and you can see them with a microscope. And what these hairs do is these hairs grab the water and they grab the dissolved nutrients in the water and they pull it in or wrap it in or move it into the root system. Inside that root system is going to be a vascular tissue. This is a tissue that absorbs and moves the water and nutrients in one direction or the other. And if we go back outside for a second and look at the external side of the root, you will see that at the very end of the root is where it's growing, right? It's growing at the tip of the root, and that's pushing through the soil, and that root has a cap on it. Just like if you were working on a construction site or had things overhead, you would want to protect your head by wearing a construction hat. A root has a cap on the end of it. It's a hard exterior that protects it as it pushes through the soil to find new nutrients and water. Here's another way of looking at it. This is a cross section, and when you look at the cross section here, you can see the root hairs on the epidermis on the outside. Then as you get inside, you see the cortex where there is storage of food if the plant chooses to store its food in those roots. And then of course in the middle is where you have the vascular cylinders. Those are the tubes. Those are the roads or the veins, depending on what analogy you want to use. They would be roads if you're thinking of how we travel around from city to city or house to house. And they would be the veins if we were talking about a human that move our blood. But in this case, it moves the water and the nutrients or food that has been absorbed by the root hairs and is going to power and fuel and feed the plant. So this is the root system. Hopefully you've gained some knowledge from this video.